Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Olivia Towers podcast. I really hope you enjoy this one. If you do, make sure to screenshot it and share it on social media. If it's on Instagram, it's Towers432. If it's Facebook, it's Olivia Towers Dressage. Also, if you're listening to this on iTunes, I would love you to leave a review, and I can't wait to see what you think of it. So welcome to episode 3 of Tackroom Tales with Towers. This one is with the lovely Alice Oppenheimer. It is jam-packed with so much information, wisdom and truth. It's just incredible, and Alice is definitely a woman after my own heart because she is just so honest, even about like struggles and the failures she's had. She speaks about it really openly and what she's learned from it and how she's moved forwards, and I just found it so inspiring. And also like so comforting to know that everybody goes through it. So if you don't know who Alice is, she is a Grand Prix dressage rider. She's won 15 national titles and competed at international Grand Prix, winning in Doha and Hagen. She was also a member of the 2009 Young Rider European team and represented Great Britain on senior national cup teams. She's based at her family stud where she produces her homebred horses and also clients' horses. So without further ado, let's get into the interview, and I really hope you guys enjoy this one.
Right, well, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Are you excited?
Yeah, I am. It's quite exciting. It's quite exciting. It's quite new, something a bit different.
It'll be nice to, I always think it's nice to like run through people to run through their career.
Okay, yeah.
And like see what they've done. So the first thing I think we should chat about is how you got into riding, like how old you were and all that stuff.
Yeah, so my mum has always had horses. My mum's always been really horsey. She grew up with horses. She's done everything from shown at Hoys, she's done point to pointer, she used to do a lot of hunters, everything basically apart from dressage, ironically. So before, like Kate, my sister Kate and I were basically thrown on a horse before we could even walk. Mum's got pictures of her sat on one of her horses, I think it was called Souvenir, and then like literally me as a baby and her holding me on the front of the saddle. So I've just been in a really like lucky situation that it's a family thing, and I've just sort of fallen into it, and I grew up with it, and I grew up doing, you know, all of the pony club stuff. Well, I say all the pony club stuff. I've never been particularly brave and never particularly liked leaving the ground or been very good at it, but I sort of went and did all that sort of that stuff, and yeah, it sort of went from there, really.
Did you take an interest in dressage straight away? Because I know at the pony club they sometimes do dressage tests, or they do. Did you like it then, or were you like, not sure?
I sort of got pushed a bit towards dressage when I was probably about 10. Like I said, I was never particularly the bravest, and no, I didn't have the greatest of balance, and I just was not that good, really. My sister Kate was always really gung-ho, and she liked the fast, whizzy ponies and going flat out and doing all the jumping, and I never really enjoyed it. And I had this pony called Dusty, and she was cool. She was 13 too, but she's what you call a family pony, and that you could have put your whole family on her back. She was really quite long, bless her. But I had her. She's cracking. She's an awesome little pony, actually. And if I did dressage, then I stayed on, and if I tried to jump, she had quite a quick stop in her, and I used to end up falling over her ears, and I'd fall over her ears, and I'd fall over her ears, and that obviously put me off a bit. And at the same time, my mum had been diagnosed with breast cancer, and I think I was 10. And she had, at the time, we had Capo II, or Dexter, who my mum had done a bit on. She'd done prelim and novice on him, and then she also had problems with hips. She had arthritis in her hips. So Kate Smith had taken over the ride, and Kate was competing him at the time. And while my mum was ill, I used to like get up and I'd muck him out before school, and then if Kate came to ride him, I'd tack him up with Kate and I'd watch and stuff. and this is going to sound really cheesy, but I remember watching Kate and Dexter win. They won at the Winter Championships when they were at Solihull. Must have been 2001. And I would have been like 11. And I turned to my mum and I was like, oh, one day I want to do what Dexter does. It sounds really cheesy now, but it was like the combination of looking after him while mum was ill and having the pony that actually the pony didn't really want to jump either. She wasn't really up for it. So that meant that I wasn't really up for it. So the combination of those sort of steered me towards dressage. And I am quite a perfectionist. Like the whole idea of the sport appeals to my personality anyway. You know, show jumpers, it's a massive skill. And I go into Peter Charles's yard, which is not far from me sometimes, and help, you know, Harry and his kids and stuff on the flat. And watching them train the show jumpers, it is also a huge skill. It's not any less skilled than what the dressage riders would do. It's just very different. So the fact that it just appeals to my nature, that perfectionist side. I'm going to get my cat as well. Hello.
You're a cat.
Yeah, he's like, feed me, it's 5:45.
Oh, bless
Sorry,
him. Do you remember the transition from it being like a hobby to then deciding that you were going to do it professionally? Like, what age were you when you decided that?
I remember I was still at secondary school when I decided I want to give riding a go as a career. And I was quite lucky. I was pretty clever at school and I didn't really find the education side of it too difficult. And I remember talking to friends and they were like, oh, well, don't get on the computer. My cat's going to come and
the cat.
And they were like, oh, you could be anything you want to be. You could be a vet, you could be a doctor, you could be a lawyer. And I was just like, but I just want to ride horses. I was like, none of that appeals to me. And my parents they wanted me to go and do my A-levels just so I had a backup just in case. So I did do college. And mum said to me, you know, I will back you 100%, but you've got to work for it. And that's how it's always been, really. You know, I'm really lucky to have the setup we've got at Headmore. And obviously mum's bred some amazing horses, but the deal was I had to work for it. And it's not really changed, to be honest.
Yeah.
Now, 12 years later.
Did you feel there was any resistance from anyone when you decided to go ahead and do it?
No, I don't think so. I think you get some people, you know, a lot of people, you get the doubters, don't you? And they sort of, they don't really have to say anything, but you know they're sort of there. And I was, you know, I'd had a reasonable amount of success already before I finished my education. I had a really cool pony who was competed as perfection himself, but his stable name was Beanie. And I'd won an elementary restricted regional on him, and then he'd been third at the Winters.
Yeah.
And I'd been like 15. Incidentally, Olivia Oakley was fourth that year.
Oh, wow,
and she was younger than me. Yeah, that's going way back.
That's
she had a cool little pony as well. And so I'd had a bit of success, and then we'd sold Beanie to enable us to buy Wizzy or Wurlitzer, because at the time mum hadn't done much breeding, and you know we're not really in the position to spend a lot of money buying horses, which is why we're now doing the breeding.
Yeah.
So we had to sell Beanie, buy Wizzy, and then he'd been, you know, pretty successful before I actually sort of stopped education and went professional. And I think you get the doubters that are like, oh well, it's been really easy and she's had loads of success so far, so as soon as the going gets a bit tough she'll quit. Yeah. And there are, you know, there's loads of those people about, and there are a lot of people for which there's that, you know, that is the situation, and they do when it's, you know, it's easy when it's all going well to think life's great and you've made a great decision riding full time and stuff, but actually most of the time it's rubbish.
Yeah.
And you know, horses are horses, and you can have problems with horses, and you can have a great season where you win everything, and then the next season you don't win anything, and then it's like that's where it's sort of the going gets tough a little bit. And I think until you've proved actually you can ride the ups and downs of horses, I think you always have those doubters a little bit.
So true. Next thing is, when you first started doing it professionally, did you have a game plan for competing and like the business side, or did you kind of just throw yourself into it?
I just sort of threw myself into it. If I'm honest, I didn't really know what I was doing.
Yeah.
When I got Wizzy, Wurlitzer, I was 15 and he was 5, and he was amazing. He was not easy. We had our ups and downs. I had to really learn to ride him. He taught me a lot. I remember doing what was Birds, which are now BD Youth, because I'm so old they've changed the name. And with James Birtwell, I was having a lesson with James, and he turned around to my mum and he said, "This horse will make her or break her."
Really?
Because he wasn't that, you know, he was by Veltmeyer, and obviously know all about them. Yeah, and he had a heart of gold, and he was the most genuine horse on the planet.
Yeah.
But if I got it wrong, he let me know about it. And, you know, he wasn't easy. I've been, you know, I remember being led out of a regional arena because I got stuck at X and he wouldn't move because I'd got it, and stuff like that. I've got eliminated internationally at Young Riders on him. I'd done all sorts with him until I learned to ride him. Yeah. And none of it was because he was a bad horse. He wasn't a bad horse. He had an absolute heart of gold. The thing was, I had to learn to ride him the right way. And, you know, like I said, when I first got him, I was 15 and he was 5, and I really didn't have a clue. But together we sort of learnt together, and he was so forgiving, because with your first Grand Prix horse, you get it wrong so many times.
No, I'm finding that out.
After mistake, and that's completely normal. For the first one, that is completely normal.
Yeah.
And he had a heart of gold, and he just forgave me every time, and he was like, "We'll try again. That's fine. We'll try again. We'll try again." And it wasn't easy, but it's sort of, we ended up just like, you know, 1 minute, you know, when he was 8, I think he was 8, he won the Advanced Media Restricted at the Nationals, and then the following year I did Young Rider Europeans. Then the following year was the year that was not going so well, so I wasn't going to get selected for Young Rider team and stuff, and he was amazing. And then all of a sudden I've like got this Grand Prix horse that I've produced myself from a 5-year-old, and it just, so I didn't really have a plan. It was just just one thing led to another.
So next thing is talking about competing and your mindset around competing, and what it was like when you started, and if it's like evolved as you've gone, which I'm sure it has, but how it has, and how you've like managed that, how, like, if you've had to work hard to change your mindset, because obviously you've got the like practical side of riding, which is hard, but then you've got the psychological side, which I sometimes think is a lot harder. So what was it like when you first started competing?
When I first started, I didn't really understand riding a test. It was just going in, and everything was, you know, I just tried to do my best in absolutely everything, and I sort of throw myself into it, left, right and centre, and if it went well, great. If it didn't, oh well, there's a next time. And what I've really learned over the years is that you've got to be able to adapt to the horse that you're sitting on, and you've got to understand what your horse's strengths and weaknesses are. So when I was a bit younger, if I'd been at a championship show, so the Nationals or the Winters, and I'd wanted to win, I'd been like, right, I'm going for everything from the start to the end. And actually you can't ride a test in that. Horses, you know, there are very few horses that you can ride on the edge for that length of time, and you won't, that will be able to stay there and not run into mistakes. So what I've really learned is to know when I can put the pressure on my horses, and when, you know, when I can ask for a bit more, and when actually the situation, the test requires me to sit a bit stiller and you know what, to win, you don't need to get a 9 for everything. That's the thing, you know, we're not, you know, when, you know, we're looking at our, you know, our national championships and stuff. So like Bella Ruby is a case in point. She won at the Nationals at Advanced Medium last year, which was, I think, a bigger shock to me than it was to anyone else at all, because it was her first season Advanced Medium, and it just hadn't even occurred to me. And she'd done the medium the day before, and she'd been a little bit too hot in the ring. She's quite a hot mare, and I'd had to ride her really quiet and just sit quite still and just sort of sit and steer. And I'd seen the judges after, and they'd been like, "Oh, we didn't really feel she was at her best." And I was like, "No, she wasn't, and I know she can go so much better." And I'm, you know, I was a bit cross with myself. I felt that, you know, I sort of talked about maybe giving her a calmer before, but I hadn't, and I was like, I should have, you know, sort of blaming myself. So the following day, I just went in and I was like, "Do you know what? She was a bit nervous yesterday. Today's another day. I just want her to go in there and have a nice time." You know, yes, we all like to win, obviously. And actually, as it turns out, she did win. But it's a journey with the horses, and it's all about producing them and knowing when is the time to ask that bit more. And I've really learned sort of ride thinking long term now. And don't get me wrong, it's amazing to win, and I'm very lucky to have won some really cool things. And but and I look at Bella's test at the Nationals, the trot work was really safe. I just sat there with a trot that she was happy with. She can trot a lot bigger than she did there, but for my thinking of her for long term, I just let her be a trot she was comfortable with. But I know her canter is outstanding. So then I rode the medium canters are unbelievable, and then you go into that serpentine advanced medium 98, and I know I have to ride the canter small because she can't do the change otherwise, because at her stage of training then she couldn't do it. So I knew to ride the canter small for then, but I finished the serpentine and rode. Then I was able to put a bit more canter in for the half passes, because it's a movement she found a bit easier. And that's where I've really learned to know my horses, know where their strengths lie, and know where actually I've got to sit a little bit stiller. And I know where that came from. I was having a session with the world-class performance psychologist just before the winters in 2015, and I knew the horse I had at the time, I would have been favourite to win there, and I was already winding myself up. It wasn't a horse that we owned, and and I wanted, I knew the owners had expectations, and I obviously had expectations, and then you end up putting too much pressure on yourself. And I was chatting to the world-class performance psychologist, and she just turned around, she said, "You don't need to go flat out from start to finish." She's like, "What score will you need to get to win?" At the time I was doing advanced medium, and I was like 72, and she was like, "So that's sevens and a few eights." She was like, "You don't need to ride everything for a 9." And that's really stuck with me, and that's something I've really learned, particularly starting horses out at Grand Prix. And it's a mistake I made with Delegate Dell when I first started him with Grand Prix, and if I had him again now, I know I'd do it so much differently. And it's something I had to learn. And he was my second Grand Prix horse, but he had so much ability in the Piaffe and Passage physically, but mentally he found it a little bit too much. Like I've always described him as like he was like a Ferrari but with the brain of a Skoda, in that he had all this power and he didn't know where to put it. And at the time I was too green at the level, and I didn't know how to deal with it, and that led on to him taking issues further down his Grand Prix career, which I did manage to an extent, but then it got to the stage where he doesn't want to do the long Grand Prix test anymore, which is fine, and he hasn't done it, and he's having he had a brilliant time with Becky Edwards, and he's having an amazing time with Cole now. Like, he is happy, and that is 100% all I care about, is that horse is happy, because he has given me so much. But it's something I've really learned, and producing Robin Di Rubinio, who's just started at Grand Prix, I can feel when he has so much ability, but I can feel particularly in the Piaffe when he offers me so much, I can feel that same sort of nervous energy I used to get from Dell. So now I've learned, now is the time to back off and go on to something else and then come back to it. So I think it's like a bit of a journey, and you have to just, you do make mistakes, and that's fine. Nobody's perfect, and you've just got to accept it is part of a learning process. And like I said, if I had Dell again now, I'm sure I'd get far more out of him at Grand Prix than I did. But
and
hopefully,
did you find it hard kind of moving forwards from that? Because I know if I had done that, this is just from my personal experience, I'd be really hard on myself and find it hard to kind of be kind to myself and be like, it's okay, you're learning. And did it take you a while to kind of move forwards from that?
Yeah, it definitely did. And I really struggled. So I produced other horses to Grand Prix after Dell, but they were quite different in the temperament. So Boadicea was Bracken, she was amazing, my absolute heart of gold, and she did it because she wanted to do it for me, and she just was such a trier in the temperament. And then Wimaway Tank, he was different again in that he wasn't so easily offended. That's how I describe Tank. Which, like, he was brilliant and he was great fun, and I loved training him, and he was a horse that I wasn't, I never had Grand Prix feel from him as a young horse, but the more I trained him and the stronger he got and the fitter he got, the hotter he got. And then when I first started training him the Piaffe, I've never seen anything like it. And I just spent a lot of time training it in hand, and then his Piaffe became his absolute party piece. So I did train other horses to Grand Prix after Dell, and then Finn's affinity. He finds the piaffe so easy. That is his party piece. The hard bit for him is the canter work. So I hadn't really had that similar sort of feel. And then I got Robin training him, and I've always doubted myself with that horse. I've always believed in his ability. I backed him as a 3-year-old, and from the moment I got on him, I was like, this horse had 80% potential written all over him. I've never sat on a horse with such huge ability, and I've shed more tears over that horse than anything else. You know, I
feel a lot of pressure when they're talented.
Oh, definitely. And I was really putting too much pressure on myself, because, you know, he's a big horse and he's not easy to ride. And the best thing I did was have that conversation with Charlotte that day and say, I think he's too big for me. I don't know what to do with him. I can't ride him. And that was when she spoke to Carl, and Carl offered to have him for a bit.
Yeah.
So he spent 6 months with Carl last year. And for my confidence, obviously the horse learnt a huge amount being with Carl. Carl is
obviously
the best, like one of the best in the world. He is phenomenal. But for me as well, I'd speak to Carl at shows and he'd say something and I'd be like, oh my God, I felt that too. So for my confidence, for Carl to turn around and say what I'd been feeling was just, it was like, at one point, I literally turned around and said, you don't know how pleased I am you've just said that. I can't even remember what it was, but, you know, I was literally turned around to him and I was like, you don't know how much, like, that means to me for you to say that. So it did do my confidence, because I was just doubting my ability phenomenally to produce the horse. And I was like, I had it, you know, stuck in my head that I had this amazing horse and I couldn't ride one side of him and I was going to ruin him like I'd ruined Dell, which was ridiculous, because obviously I hadn't ruined Dell because he'd been very successful. But, you know, you put that, you know, it's normal to put that pressure on yourself. And since Robin's been home, I sort of was a bit like, oh, I'm not going anywhere. That's fine. I'm going to hide it and we'll play at home. It's fine. Yeah. And then Charlotte came down and she was like, you need to go and do an into 2. And I was like, I don't want to do into 2. I want to wait till he's ready to do Grand Prix. Like, I was like, I'm not, you know, I've done an into 2 on him before he went to Carl's. I just want to wait till he's ready to do Grand Prix. And then I had the lesson and she was like, he's ready to do Grand Prix. And I was like, oh
no.
Oh, that wasn't what I was expecting. So she was like, man up, do it, just do it. And I was like, oh, and I said to her, I was like, oh, I don't know. I don't know. I just don't, I'm so worried. And she was like, what are you worried about? And I was like, well, you know, I don't know, you know, he's done so little competing. I don't know that he'll, you know, will be able to do it. And, you know, I said, and he's not, you know, he's not easy to ride. And I said, and he's such an amazing horse. And he is an eyeful, that horse. He's phenomenal to look at. And I was like, I don't want to be one of those people where there's people stood on the sideline and they're going, oh, look at her with that amazing horse and she can't ride one side of it. I don't want to be one of those people.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
And Charlotte turned around to me and she said, do you know what the simple answer is? She said, they can have a go. And do you know what, when she said that, I was like, actually, she's got a point.
Yeah.
So many people are so quick to bitch and criticise and, you know, have a go at whoever's in the ring. But actually the bottom line is they're in the ring. And a Grand Prix test is really hard.
You go.
Like, it's really hard.
I found that out the other day. Yeah, it is easy.
It's really hard. And yeah, and I think so. I have, you know, of course, confidence goes up and down, and especially, you know, I went into 2016. I had 2 Grand Prix horses in Dell and Bracken, and then I went into 2017. Dell had decided he didn't want to do it anymore. The pressure of I was longlisted for Rio. And the pressure of the Olympic campaign sort of tipped him over the edge. And that's when I moved him on to Becky to do Young Riders, because he didn't want to retire, but he didn't want to do Senior Grand Prix. Yeah. So, and then we'd sold Bracken. So I went into 2017 with no Grand Prix horses, and you sort of feel like it's really hard. It's really hard to pick yourself up from that. And 2017 was quite a quiet year for me. I did okay. I went to the Winters, I went to the Nationals. Oh no, I didn't go to the Winters that's right. I didn't go to the Winters because I'd broken a finger, so I missed the Winters. But I got horses fit for the Nationals. Got placed, but nothing particularly exciting. It wasn't particularly special, and it's hard. Like, you do go in peaks and troughs, and when you're in one of the downs, it's really hard to keep the faith and just keep going. And now, 2018 and last year were just phenomenal. The horses are getting better and better, and now all of a sudden I'm 2020 and I've got 3 Grand Prix horses again, and you're like, when did that happen?
So exciting.
It's crazy.
Exciting.
So yeah, I have learned to deal with that a little bit.
What you were saying about, you know, Charlotte kind of obviously said about Carl helping you. And I also know that you've had Danny Morgan help you as well. It's amazing that you're not kind of too proud or embarrassed to ask for help from other riders.
Yeah, I think like it's quite brave to turn around and say, actually, I can't do it.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
it's a really big thing to actually have the balls to admit that.
Yeah.
And Danny was brilliant with Davina. When I first started competing Davina as a 6-year-old, and I had a couple of instances that showed she bolted. And when I say I could not stop her, I mean I could not stop her. I'd come off her one show and then I came off her twice at the next show. And the second time at the next show was in the arena, and she just panicked, rang blind, and slapped me into the fence. And the mare has a heart of gold. Yeah. She has not got a nasty bone in her body, but she was genuinely scared. Yeah. It was a complete, genuine reaction. She wasn't being naughty and she wasn't being nasty. And the second show where she'd had me off twice, I got on her again because she was very difficult to back. And I was like, if I don't get on this horse again now, we won't ever get on this horse again. Yeah. And people are like, you're crazy. And I'm like, trust me, one day I was like, I have belief in this horse.
We will get there.
Yeah, and she always was a funny one. She was very difficult to back. And I used to say to Mum, like some days she'd just bronk you off when you sat in the saddle just because. But I used to say to Mum, it's really weird because if you can stay on for a trot and a canter, she feels really rideable. I was like, this horse is not unrideable.
Yeah.
That's where I was like, yes, she used to bolt, but it was so genuine. And that's why we'd seen Danny deal with another horse bolting at Star Show, and he'd been absolutely brilliant. Incredible. So Mum just messaged him and was like, would you mind coming to, we've got one, would you mind coming and helping us with her? And he was brilliant with her. Like I said, she was genuinely terrified, but he's so laid back, Danny. And he just gave her so much confidence. And the thing is, when she used to panic and run, he was strong enough that he could sort of stop her running. And then she learned actually there was nothing to actually run away from.
Yeah.
And he gave the horse so much, and he was very successful with her, and he gave her so much confidence and stuff. And I still see him a lot now. Like he's very good. You know, he's brilliant with the young horses, and now he's really
amazing as well. Like that really helped his career too, didn't it? It kind of
it is. And I always say to him, I'm always quite proud. Like when he did his first Grand Prix, I was like, Joe, I'm so proud of you. Because when he first came to us, he'd done like a few mediums and that was it. He literally hardly done dressage. And now look at him, like he's winning national titles, he's ridden at Grand Prix, like it's phenomenal. And he's a great rider, you know. And it was funny when he first started riding Davina, and people would say, because obviously like his dad's Jamaican, Danny, so he's not white. And people would come up to us and say, oh, he's a very nice rider, that one you've got on your horse. And I just turn around and be like, well, I wouldn't let him ride her otherwise. Like, I don't understand why people were so surprised that he could actually ride. I feel I'm quite proud of sort of how he's developed as a rider. And then
next thing is, I'm going to ask you is, which your favourite show is, like which the best show you've ever had, like to date you can remember. But then there'll be the flip side, and we've got to do the hardest one. But we'll start with the nicest one.
The best show, it's got to be Doha. I went out to Doha in 2016 with Hayley Watson-Greaves. Hayley and I are really close, and Del and her horse Squeaks have sort of gone up the levels together. Yeah. And we got on world class together beginning of 2015. We did our First Nations Cup together in Rotterdam in 2015. We did Hicksted together in 2015, and we had sort of gone on together. And I did Anderton High Profile on Dell, and he won, and he did a cracking Grand Prix. Actually, it was probably one of the best. You know, it felt amazing, and I got some really cool pictures and stuff. And I got a message from Carl via Charlotte saying, you need to go to Doha, you're ready. And it hadn't even crossed my mind. Like the thought of going and flying out to Qatar to compete to me was terrifying. I'd never flown a horse before. It was like. And then I was chatting to Hayley about it, and she was like, oh, I've been told that as well. And I was like, so we ended up just sort of going together. And the show was unbelievable. I've never...
It's insane, isn't it?
It's unbelievable. And like you stay in the St Regis Hotel in Doha, and you come out and there's like brand new Mercedes cars and their job is to drive back and from the hotel to the showground to sit like so like the riders get ferried in these brand new Mercedes cars. Like I've literally never, it was mind blowing. I didn't even know that stuff like that existed. And I mean, it was lovely to get some winter sun as well. And my Grand Prix didn't go so well. Like my Grand Prix was pretty rubbish, to be honest. Lots of mistakes, one of those. But then I sort of pulled it together for the special, and then I won the special with 72 something, which was my international PB at the special.
And it just went back from a rubbish test to win.
I know it. Well, I just didn't really know what was going on, to be honest. And I just remember we were watching the big show jumping class on the last day.
Yeah.
So I'd won the Grand Prix special, and Hayley had a really good show, been placed in the music. Like we'd had a brilliant time. We were sat watching the big jumping class. I think the prize fund is like 250,000 euros or something crazy in this class. And we sat there watching it, and I just turned to Hayley and I was like, mate, when did we get this good? I was like, this is insane. What are we doing here? And it was just a real like surreal moment. And I was like, how did this happen? Like we're sat in Qatar and they've paid to fly our horses out here and basically paid us to compete here. The only thing we had to pay was to get our horses to the airport to fly.
No way.
The rest of it was paid for by the organising committee. And I just said to her, I was like, this is ridiculous. So yeah, that was really cool.
And did you like kind of take all that in? Did you take the time to like bask in it? Because it can be so easy to move on from something like that.
I think we did a bit, and I think we were in Qatar and they don't drink a lot out there, and we got back to the hotel and we were like, I really feel like we should have it's the last night, I really feel like we should get a bottle, because you could buy alcohol in the hotels. It's like, I really feel like we should buy a bottle of Prosecco and just celebrate. We've had a great time, like this is a big thing, and I feel like we should really celebrate. So we're looking through the menu and like the bottle of Prosecco was like 70 odd quid. And we were like, are you joking? 70 quid bottle of Prosecco. We're like, do you know what? It calls for it. So yeah, it was really, and then I got home and I got on one of mine and I hadn't done my girth up tight enough and it brought me off and it was quite funny.
Oh, well, there we go. It's
back to earth. I'm home.
I'm home.
Yeah, it was fine.
So that's incredible. But I feel like let's talk about the hardest show you've had, or the one you've struggled with the most that you can remember.
I'm just trying to have a bit of a think.
Which is the worst one?
I know, that's the thing, but you know, like there's some silly things and like little things. I probably something that I found really different, and it wasn't a particularly big show. To me, it was a really big show at the time.
Yeah,
but it wasn't a particular. It was Wellington used to hold the Advanced Media Music Final, and I had Woody there. It would have been 2008 because it was just before I won at the Nationals, and he did a really cracking test actually, and I think I would have been like either first or second. Yeah. But when I came out, he'd bitten his lip, so obviously that was elimination. And I, like I said, I was only about 18, so I wasn't very old. And like sort of getting your first taste of that is a bit, it is hard. Like I said, it wasn't a particularly big. Yes, it was a sort of championship of sorts, but it wasn't. It's not like it happened at, somewhere. Like when Parzival bit his tongue at Weg with Adelinda, stuff like that. It could have been a far bigger event, but for 18-year-old me, that was. It was really tough to sort of take in, especially when you've done a really good test. And yeah, that was a bit of but it's a lesson, it happens with horses. It's a lesson. I had it last year, Davina, I still don't know how she had blood in her mouth because we couldn't find anything, but she'd had a cracking show at the Winter. She'd won the Prix St George and the Inter One, the straight classes, and then I'd messed up the Prix St George freestyle because I rode like a frickin' lemon and I rode 2s instead of 3s or 3s instead of 4s. I don't even know what I'd done, but I'd done something really stupid and I really felt like I'd let her down because Davina really does have a heart of gold, and she only makes a mistake if I do. So I was doing the test and I moved my legs and I was like, you idiot, you've just ridden a 3. And it was supposed to be a 4. And I literally was like, I can't believe you've just done that. And I literally was riding across diagonal. Like, literally, if I could have smacked myself on the forehead, I would have done. If I didn't have a free hand because I was riding. And then in the Inter-1 freestyle, she actually did some really cracking trot work. And then I went into walk and the judge of C noticed a tiny bit of pink in her mouth. And rules are rules and it's fine. They're there for the welfare of the horse at the end of the day. And like I said, we never found anything in her mouth. I still don't know
what it was,
where it came from. But she does get a lot of slobber, and then it doesn't take an awful lot to make it look worse when they get a really wet mouth. And I was devastated for Davina because I really felt like she'd been amazing that week, and it wasn't really how I wanted her show to end. But then I thought, you know what, she doesn't know. She's quite happy. We took her back to the stable. She had a bucket full of carrots. Actually, she'd felt cracking and really good, and it was fine.
There's another show.
Yeah, there's always another show, and I think, I have sort of learnt a lot from sort of those 2 instances, and that it does just happen, and it's bad luck when it happens. Horses biting lips, tongues, whatever. But it happens to everyone at some point.
Yeah. Before we move on from the competing stuff, I wanted to ask you what you think, because you've had so much success in competing. Is there not a secret sauce, but what do you think the main reason is for your success? Is it your mindset? Is it, how you get ready for tests or whatever? What you think that's up to?
I don't know really. I've always been told I'm quite a good competitor. I don't really know what that means, but quite a few people have told me that. And I remember when we did doing Nations Cup, and Dickie Wagon was our chef to keep, and he said to my mum, she's a really good competitor. I don't really know what that means, but I guess for me it's the ability to ride the horse the same in the ring as you do at home or outside, because they don't know. So I don't really know.
I think
really.
From me watching you, it is that you don't kind of lose your shit when you go in the arena. You still ride for things, whereas sometimes you can see riders go in and they underride it, or you say override it.
Yeah.
But you kind of found that balance.
And I think as well, because we've obviously bred ours and we know them so well, and I've ridden them all from young horses.
Yeah, massive difference. Makes a massive
difference. I know them like the back of my hand, and actually they know me as well. And it will sound completely cheesy, but I have such a relationship with my horses. Bella,
cute.
I absolutely adore that mare, and if I walk around the corner on the yard, people will know I'm coming because she'll prick her ears up. It's silly things like that, and I think it's having that. You've got to know your horses well enough, and it's that ability to ride, like I said, ride them the same. Yes, you're in the arena, but they don't really know that.
No, they don't.
Yes, you're not riding them at home, and they've got some plats in, but actually, it's
pick up on what you're
the whole point, being able to ride them the same. So I think that's probably it, but I don't really know, to be honest.
Right, so we've gone through the glamorous stuff of competing. Now let's get into the daily routine, because that is, to be honest, that's the majority of it, isn't it, rather than the competing. So can you talk us through your daily routine, your day-to-day stuff, what you do?
It sort of depends really, what I've got to do in a day, how many I've got to ride and things. If I've got a really busy day, quite often I can be on my first horse by 7 a.m. If needed.
And what time do you start?
Well, the horses, my parents feed about 6 a.m.
Yeah.
They go out and do that. My mum has this thing from when she used to do point to pointer. She likes them to eat when it's quiet. So they go out early before anyone else gets here. So horses can have their breakfast and then eat when it's quiet. And that's something we've always done. And that's something I do at shows. I will get up and I'll go in and I'll feed them and, literally walk away and leave them. And it's something we've always done. It's a thing of my mum. So they're fed at sort of 6-ish. And then, like I said, it depends on how many I've got to do. If it's a busy day, I can be on my first horse by 7 if needed. If it's not too busy, then I'm normally on the first one sort of 8-ish. And I would just sort of keep going till I've finished, really. And I do, my personal trainer, I see she runs a sort of selection of exercise classes that I do on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I also do a weight session with her on a Monday, which is really enjoyable. Actually, no, it's not that bad. That's mean. I shouldn't say it's not that bad. I actually quite enjoy it. I do a Pilates on a Monday evening. It used to be Tuesday evening, but it's changed. And I've now also, until May, got to run 3 times a week.
I can't believe, this lady is doing the London Marathon, everybody. It's insane. I can't.
I don't really know. Well, I do know how I fell into it, but I don't really know what I'm doing, to be honest. I don't know why I said yes.
So do you just mainly ride in the day, or do you do any like yard stuff, or is it more just focused on the riding now?
I tend to just ride now. We've got quite a lot here, and I think I've got like 8 or 9 of my own competition horses at the moment.
So on average, you ride like 8 or 9 horses a day?
That's sort of, if that's all mine, and then sometimes because we run a livery yard, I'll teach or ride some of the livery's horses. My sister tries to get me to help her sometimes with her horse. She adores. I think I've got to ride her tomorrow. So it's just sort of, and then I sometimes go off and do a bit of teaching. Just I don't have a real set routine. It's sort of a what needs doing gets done kind of thing. And if it means I'm out there from 7 a.m. until 6 p.m., which some days it does, and then go out again to feed them later on, then that's fine. And if it means that actually my day's a bit shorter, then that's also fine. I'll just my horses have more of a routine than I do, to be honest.
That's always the way.
They all sort of work 6 days a week, but it'll be generally only 4 days in the school, and then they'll have like a hack or a lunge or some pole work or a water treadmill or something like that. So they get more routine than I do, really.
Oh, nice. This is going to be an obvious one because I kind of know what you're going to say, but do you ever struggle with like motivation, just to keep like slogging away day in day out with it, and sometimes you just like in the morning you're like, oh
100%. I think it's, especially this time of year, is hard. When you're starting in the dark and you're finishing in the dark, it is really tough. But then you have moments, and it doesn't, you don't even have to win to make it worthwhile. Like, I took Robin to do the Addington High Profile Show Grand Prix, and I'd had a really crazy busy week, and I'd had like 4 out of the 5 days had been 7 a.m. till 6 p.m. with virtually non-stop, and I was just so tired, and I was like, I don't even know how. I think I'd had to ride a couple before we left, so I'd been out there on my first one at like 6:45 to get a couple ridden before we left Addington and stuff. Because I was like, oh, it'll be fine, because Addington's normally in the evening, and I'll be able to ride, and then we'll be able to go. And then I got my time, and I was like, oh, I'm third in at like 1:15. Brilliant.
nice.
And I had to and I was like, oh, I don't, and then I was like, I don't know, I'm so tired, I don't know I'll be able to ride well. And Mum was like, oh, you can nap in the lorry, you'll be fine, because that's what my mum's like.
It's such a mum thing to say, isn't it?
It's such a mum thing. And then we went, and Robin was way exceeded my expectations. Way better than I ever even imagined would be possible at this point of his Grand Prix career. I think he was like 7th with a 69. And and then you sort of think, actually, do you know what? Those hours that you spend day in, day out are actually worth it. It doesn't always go that way. Sometimes you're like, oh, what bother? Actually, you've got, and I was always taught, like, celebrate the small things. We've learned to really like celebrate the moments when they're there. And it's something, like I say, we had a couple of parties last year, because as a yard we had such a great time at the Winters and the Nationals. It wasn't just me, it was all the liveries, like everyone had a brilliant time. And I said to them, the problem is, you go, oh yeah, we'll do something about it, we'll have a party, and then you leave it, and then before you know it, it's 6 months later, you haven't even celebrated. So we've got quite good now. Like, we just sort of throw an impromptu yard get together. So we were like out there at like 1 September Eve on a Friday, like I think it was the Friday after the Nationals, just eating like sandwiches from M&S because we were too late to order any decent food in and stuff. It was fine. So I think you have to stay motivated. You have to sort of celebrate the small things, because big things don't come around often.
I love that. The other thing as well I was going to say is, do you feel like you've got a balance with your riding career and also like life, the rest of
No.
life? No.
Definitely no. My horses are my life. But actually, that's fine.
And you're happy with that?
Yeah, I am. People, my sister's just got married, and I've had a lot of people going, "Oh, we need to find you a man. You need to do this. You need to do that." And I'm like, do you know what? I am completely happy single. It's fine.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I need to. I hate these stereotypes because I've just turned 30, so you can imagine I had it all because I've just turned 30.
Yeah,
I should be married with children because I've just turned 30, and I don't get that. Like, everyone is different.
Yeah.
And if you want to be married with kids by your 30, then by the time you're 30, that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that's particularly wrong. But for me, I've got such an amazing string of horses at the moment, and yes, they, especially with marathon training, I literally have no spare time.
Yeah.
So, like, that's just how it is. And would I have it any other way?
Way of riding.
Sometimes I think, oh, I wonder if, I had gone to university and if I'd gone down a different career path and I'd been to uni and I'd got a normal 9 to 5 Monday to Friday job, I kind of a sort of thing, I wonder where I'd be now. But
yeah,
you can do, like, there's loads of what ifs, and would I be where I am now? No, I wouldn't. But does it mean I'd be any more happy? No, probably not.
love it. The last topic that we're going to go into, you've got so many things, this is the thing, is the breeding side of things. Do you want to explain a little bit about that?
So we sort of, mum, accident, again, just fell into it, that really. It started with, she got given a thoroughbred mare quite a long time ago now. It must be sort of at least 25 years ago. Like, I was not very old. We've got a big estate just up the road from us called Rotherfield Park, and it was owned by someone called Sir James Scott. I think his name was Sir James Scott. And he had been hunting one day on this thoroughbred mare, come home early because he didn't feel well, and then had just passed away in his sleep, just like that.
Wow.
And Mum knew them, and I think it was his wife said to her, would you like the mare that he used to hunt, because she was his pride and joy and he wouldn't want us to go anywhere else, and we don't know what to do with her, but there's just one condition: I don't ever want her ridden again, because he wouldn't have wanted that. And she was actually a really, I said, she was a thoroughbred, but she was a quality thoroughbred. She really, she actually moved quite nicely. She was very correct. She had good conformation. Mum was like, oh yeah, I'll breed from her. That's cool. Like, I'm happy to not ride her, and I'll have her, and she can have another job, And so she got this mare. She was called Goldie, and that's when she started breeding. And she started off breeding more the eventer types. So she bred 3 that were eventing bred. And then at the time, Darren Mattia and Suzanne Lavandera were based not far up the road from us, literally like 10 minutes up the road. And Mum got a phone call from Darren one day. Mum's known Darren a long time. And he said, you've got to come and see this 2-year-old colt we've just brought over from Germany. He's phenomenal. So Mum went off down the road to see him, looked at him, was like, oh my God, that horse is incredible. I love him. And that was DiMaggio. So Mum was like, I'm going to use him on my thoroughbred mare next year. So she did. And that horse is still at Headmore. She's 20 now.
Really?
Yeah. And her owner bought her as a 3-day-old foal.
Yeah.
And bred an embryo transfer foal out of the one that Mum bred, who's Eric, who's Headmore Footloose, who has won 3 national titles with the owner's stepdaughter. He won prelim at the Nationals in 2018 and novice silver, both novice silvers at the Winters last year. So yeah, so that's sort of how Mum fell into breeding. And then she'd met DiMaggio, and then at a similar time, well, it wasn't even then, she just thought that pushed her more towards the dressage breeding, because she liked the way they move and the dressage horses, and we sort of, she got Dexter to Cab of the Second by then, and we sort of tripped into more the dressage, and it's just gone on from there really. And it just started as a bit of something on the side, and then I decided I wanted to ride, and we can't afford to buy them, so Mum started breeding them. And I always say to people, like, we'd never be able to afford to buy the quality of horse that we've bred. I look at the horses I've got in my stable and I'm like, I don't like to think what they're worth, because I'd probably never get them out of the stable if I thought that. But I look at them and I'm like, there's no way we would have been able to afford to buy this horse. So yeah, it sort of fell into that, really.
How many have you bred so far?
Oh God, that's a question. I couldn't even begin to. I think we've had something like 12, at least 12 DiMaggios. Rubensteiner probably had 10 for us, or something like that. So yeah, I couldn't even begin
to guess.
I'd probably forget
favourite one?
I think that's a mean question to ask.
I know, sorry.
I think, like, it's like anything, isn't it? Like, we breed the horses, and then obviously they've all got their own different temperaments. So I'm going to get on with some more than I get on with others. I already, I've not been. Everyone knows that Bella is my princess. I absolutely adore that horse, and I love her to bits. I think she's the bee's knees. But she wouldn't be for everyone, in that she would be a real alpha mare. And it's fine because I get on with her.
I've never heard that. The alpha mare.
If you took her on, if you were too tough with her, she would say no. Because she's a real strong character, and I love that. And like I said, I get on really well with her, and it works. So I have quite a special relationship with her. And I'm really smug about her, because Ryan Shannon backed her for us when she was coming 4, and then we brought her home just after Doha, actually. That's when, and I got on her and I trotted like 2 strides, and I said to Mum, oh my God, this horse is unbelievable. I was like, the feel this horse gives, I was like, this horse is amazing. And she was like, no, I can't see it, I think she's ordinary, I don't like her. And I was like, trust me, one day this horse is going to be really special. I was like, I can feel it. And she didn't. She looked very ordinary. She was really weak. She was a real weed, real weedy little. And now she's coming 8. She won at the Winters and the Nationals last year. She's ready to do her first Prix St George, and has done it. She does everything. She does the half steps and the passage steps for the Grand Prix. And I'm like, told you so.
Told you so.
And she's like, oh. But I mean, she does trust my feel, my mum. But she was planning on selling Bella as a young horse, and I literally was like, if you sell her, I'm leaving. So that was how I managed to keep her, and now she won't let her go anywhere. And Bella's been great from our point of view as an embryo transfer mare, as well as a competition horse. She's got a lovely filly that's a yearling this time by Franklin, who is like a Bella clone. It's like a mini me. She is just so like her mother, so I'm already like, yep, that one's mine.
One.
Yeah, and then Mum had a bit of a panic last year because we were struggling to get one of the others in foal, because she likes to do 2 a year, because then they've always got a friend. And we were struggling to get one in foal, so she was like, I'm gonna have to do embryo transfer with Bella. And I was like, well, that's fine, but she's got her regional in a couple of weeks. She's like, oh, it's fine, we'll do it after that. So literally she lives on, her and Davina live on Regulate, because when they're in season they get quite sore, so we found them much happier on Regulate. So I was like, well, that's fine. So we literally did the regional on the Sunday, which she won, didn't give her Regulate Sunday, scanned her on Monday, and seminaded her on Tuesday, and then they flushed an embryo the following Thursday. Like, she is a machine, that mare. That's so amazing. From our point of view, she, like, Mum's like, she's not going anywhere, and I'm like, good. So yeah, she's quite a special one. And I think, I mean, Davina, like I said, has an absolute heart of gold, and what she does, which is priceless, and you don't get many horses that do that, is she just gives you everything she's got. She's a real trier. So yeah, and I think, I mean, I've always gotten quite well with the mares. I get on really well with mares. But having said that, Robin is, I have quite a rapport with him too, and I think I backed him as well, so going way back. And I sort of think, yes, I've had help along the way. Carl's had him for 6 months and stuff, but actually I've backed him, and now he's Grand Prix. And he's another one, actually, if I walk around the corner, he pricks his ears up, which is really nice that they sort of recognise you and want to spend time with you and stuff. Sounds cheesy, but it's quite special.
I love that. So let's look to the future. Do you have any like set goals, set plans with what you want to do, or are you just going with the flow?
Yeah, I don't really know. I think like sometimes making plans with horses, it doesn't always end well, does it? Because horses will be horses. I've always said, I think it's quite a brave thing to say, but I feel like, you know, I can say it, and if I don't do it, I haven't failed. What I'd really like to do is get on a British team and win a medal on a homebred. I think that would be really, like, that's something that long term I'd really like to aim for. And I think, you know, we've got quality horses and, you know, at Headmore, and it's just a case of producing them correctly and giving them enough time and getting them right, which is something that I'm learning a bit along the way. I'll be honest, I'm still winging it. So yeah, that sort of would be, but I mean, there's no time scale on that. I don't tend to really, I just sort of keep producing the horses. And see where we go. I was like, you know, like I said, in 2017, I went from having 2 Grand Prix horses in 2016 to having none, and now I'm 2020 and I've got 3 Grand Prix horses and one about to start at Prix St George. So it just,
that's amazing.
It's like it just, horses go in cycles and you've just got to go with it.
Nice. Right, the last question I ask everybody this is, you have to think about this hypothetically, but imagine you could ring your 16-year-old self and you need to give them 3 bits of advice. What would they be?
Don't go into horses full time. No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
Turn around.
Yeah, go to university. Oh God. It's okay to make mistakes. I think that's a really big one.
Yeah.
Because I used to beat myself up a lot if I got it wrong. And now I've learned that actually, you know what, nobody's perfect.
It's the perfectionism though, isn't it? People do that when they've got that in them.
Yeah. I think keep the faith, because that's something that you always have to believe in yourself and your training methods, and trust, even if it's not going right now, trust in a year's time you'll be in a different place. I think that's quite an important one. And
the third one always gets people stuck.
Yeah, that's really hard. I'm trying to think of a third one. Buy a winning lottery ticket, I don't know.
Yeah, there we go. Last one. Win the lottery.
that would help make life a lot easier.
Yeah.
I don't really. The third one's really hard.
I know, Claire got stuck on the third one for ages.
Oh, I'm going to be like Claire. Actually, that's a good point. Don't be afraid to try new things.
Yes.
That's, talking of Claire, because when I first started with Claire, when she first came back from Holland, she bought her mare and her foal here. And that's why, and I just got chatting to her and I said to Mum, I really want to ask her for help with Robin. And I'd wanted to message Tristan a few years ago with Robin, because the talent has never been in question, but sometimes his brain would get a bit ahead of him and he wouldn't be able to sort of cope with it. And Mum was like, oh, he'll grow out of it. And then when Claire was here, I was like, do you know what, I'm going to ask her, she's here. And I spoke to her, and when I first started, everyone was like, you freaking crazy.
Yeah,
like the number of people,
weren't you?
The number of people that were like, what are you doing? And I'm very like, I'll try anything once. Like, that's the thing. You can't write something off without giving it a go.
Yeah.
And I'm so pleased that actually I was brave enough to ask for her help, because Robin and Finn, the yellow one, Finn, he transformed with working that way.
Yeah.
From a horse that I couldn't get all the changes round an advanced medium, in the following 6 months, he did a clear round at Institute at the Nationals and a clear round in first Grand Prix. I'm so pleased that actually I had the balls to say, do you know what, it's a bit out there, but I don't care.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's quite a big one.
I'm so glad you did it, because then it brought it out, didn't it? And then we started.
Yeah, and Claire's really sweet. She's always said, oh, I'm so grateful that you sort of really moved her teaching forward, not only in Hampshire but in the UK, because it is a bit different. It is a bit out there, and when I first started,
it's tough to learn. Like, and
it's really hard. I know. I was really hard. I found it really hard. But when I first started, and I told Eric what I was doing, and Eric's very traditional classical trainer, And he's brilliant, and I can't imagine ever training with anyone else. Like, his eye is phenomenal. But he turned around to me and he went, well, you can't train a horse to Grand Prix like that. And I said to him, I'm fully aware I'm not going to train a horse to Grand Prix by waving a plastic bag around his head. Like, I do understand that. I was like, this is an addition to what we already do. This doesn't replace any training. It's just something added on.
Yeah.
And Eric has really come around to the idea because of Finn.
Love that.
Because Finn, he found the canter really hard, and the changes particularly. And I had a session with Charlotte where she made me push the canter too forward, and she's like, oh, your canter's too small. And I said to her, but I can't do the Grand Prix movements in a bigger canter yet. He can't do it yet. Yeah. But she made me push the canter, and I literally couldn't. I got to a stage where I couldn't even ride a single flying change. He couldn't even do one, let alone a line of ones. And I was like, oh, it's fine, Eric's coming. And I had the session with Eric, and it was a disaster. I literally couldn't get flying changes left, right, and centre. And I was like, oh, God. Anyway, Claire, before the next Eric session, and I did 2 sessions with Claire with Finn. Eric came the next week, literally within half an hour. I'd done everything for the Grand Prix, and he was like, I'll put him away. He was like, what happened? And I was like, he had Claire. And since then, Eric really appreciates the benefits of that kind of training. Yeah, and he hadn't sort of seen it work before. And I mean, Finn is, he is quite extreme with it. Like, there aren't many that actually you do see, like, it's quite such an extreme with it. Yeah. But doing the changes over the tarpaulin has transformed him. I couldn't get them before.
That's amazing.
So, yeah. No, I'm so pleased that we had the balls to do that, really.
Anyone listening that doesn't know what we're going on about is the TRT method, the Tristan Tucker one. Because I don't think
the horses love it too.
That's great. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for doing this. Before we go, if anyone wants to follow your journey, where will they find you?
So my Facebook is Alice Oppenheimer Dressage. My Instagram is at Alice Op15.
I just found out I wasn't following you either when I went on.
Really?
I was like, how was this?
I'm offended.
Now I am. Don't worry. Now I am.
And also, there's all the marathon stuff on there as well. I'm sort of documenting my training and stuff. So, and there's opportunity to win prizes for my marathon fundraising. So
you're a woman of many talents.
Well, I'll get to May. I'm literally never running again. Trust me.
I love that. Awesome. Right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'll see you soon.
So there you have it, guys, the end of the interview, which means we are coming to the end of the podcast. I really hope you found it interesting and inspirational. I think Alice gives such a honest view of how you get to Grand Prix and how tough it is, and that mistakes are going to happen, but you've just got to be kind to yourself and keep pushing forwards and keep kind of aiming for what you want to get to. So whatever your goal is, whether it's Grand Prix or just to go out and enjoy your horse, remember that you've got to be kind to yourself and anything is possible. If you did enjoy this podcast, we would love to hear why, and just to get your feedback on it. So share this onto Instagram and write a little bit about what you thought of it. So my Instagram is Towers432 and Alice's is AliceOp15, and tag both of us in it and then we can see. If you want to private message us, I'm sure Alice wouldn't mind you messaging her, and I definitely don't mind you messaging me. Also, I just wanted to say, if you have any questions or areas you really want me to go into with these amazing riders, just drop me a message and I will definitely add them in, because I'm kind of learning as I go with these interviews, and I just want to make sure that you guys are really getting what you want to get out of it. They are for you, they're to inspire you, they're to help you. So I just want to do my best for you guys. But that is the end of it, and I will see you for episode 4 very soon.